You hear all these stories about rock stars and all of the trappings, you know, the groupies, the drugs, the hotels. Is that all a cliche, or is some of that actually true?
No, it's you just have to imagine it as the most extreme kind of hedonism that everything all your wildest dreams is just presented to you. I think Annie Lennox says it in her song with the Eurythmics, "Sweet dreams are made of this," but it's also, it can be quite nightmarish as well if you're not careful.
Yeah.
It was Jamiroquai transformed my life.
Hello, I'm Tunde, and this is the How I Crushed It podcast, the podcast that shines a light on talent in the community. This week on the pod, we have on musician Sola Akingbola. Sola is a world-renowned percussionist, composer, and recording artist, and someone I've wanted to get on the podcast for a long time because of the diversity of his creative output. He's probably best known for being in the Grammy Award-winning band Jamiroquai, which was one of the UK's biggest bands back in the 90s and 2000s and still running strong. But he's also a recording artist in his own right and performed outside the band with the likes of David Bowie, Stevie Wonder, Tony Allen, and he's also done a lot of work in the theatre. Now, if you listen towards the end of the interview, you'll discover he has a bit of a famous family, and several members have followed him into the arts, including one person who's made some waves in Bel Air. That's a bit of a clue for you there. So during this chat, we certainly talk about what it's like to work with some of those greats that I've mentioned earlier, the likes of Bowie and Stevie Wonder, how his music career actually started, and what touring the world being a rock star is really like. Now, if you like this episode, please do me one favour and just share it with one of your friends. That's it, just one. That's all we ask. It will just take you 2 seconds and we'd really appreciate it. So Sola, thank you so much for coming on. You're very, very welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, Tunde.
No problem. I mean, there's so much to go through with you and your career. I don't quite know how we're going to get through it all, but let's see how we get on. So let's go back right to the beginning. You were born in 1965 in Nigeria, but a decision was made, I think by your parents, obviously, when you were about 2 years of age, to relocate to the UK. I mean, why was that, do you think?
Well, Dad was of that generation of Nigerians that came here to study, to do medicine, and Mum also wanted to study. And I was born in Nigeria, and Dad was already here, so he was feeling, the I need to see my son. And he managed to establish himself in Portobello, just off Portobello, Notting Hill.
Yeah.
And so he brought us both over, and that was it. And we were staying with our first cousins. So we all lived in this big house on Warnington Road, which is still there actually.
Okay.
But the houses have all been knocked down, so it's all kind of public housing. But it's amazing. I mean, every time I go now to Notting Hill or Portobello, it's my kind of happy space, because I was very happy in West London. Yeah.
Okay.
I have really fond memories of being there. So anytime I'm there, it brings it back up.
And like many Nigerians and other sort of people from West Africa, often they came with big plans, big dreams, and they didn't quite work out for them for whatever reason. I think you've mentioned on another interview that your dad wanted to get into medicine, and it didn't quite work out. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. It's interesting. We never really spoke about it. When I tried to speak to him about it, he never really opened up as to why he didn't, push more for it. Because when it became clear that I was going to pursue a musical career, it was a big deal. Obviously, as the firstborn, and I remember one of the things my dad saying that, don't you know that musicians are beggars in Yoruba land? So straight away, it wasn't a very encouraging start to deciding that, listen, I'm not doing this law, medicine, banking thing that Nigerians were doing at the time when I was growing up. Every Nigerian was a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, and I was fortunate to be introduced to Fela and Anikulapo Kuti and Professor Wole Soyinka. You know, they're related, they're cousins.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to Professor Soyinka through his work, Death and the King's Horseman, fantastic play, and some of his books, and Fela through the music. So through those two, I've decided, as young as 15, 16, that I'm going to pursue this kind of being a Nigerian in the UK, not the academic one.
Okay.
But funnily enough, I've kind of come back to it, a kind of academic approach through anthropology. My former partner, the mother of my daughters, was an anthropologist, so she kind of re-inspired me to that academic approach, but using it through. I did classics at school, so I was into the Greek classics, and I used the classics to bring me back to the Yorubas. So the Greeks reintroduced me to the Yorubas through, I'd come home and question my dad about, what I've been reading about Zeus and Hera and Apollo and Achilles, very interesting mythology. And then Dad was, we have that.
Yeah.
We have all of that.
Yeah.
And Oshun and Shango. And so I was like, wow, oh my God. So that really, and also Professor Soyinka really draws from that in his work, as does Fela. So from way back, that inspiration has always been there to then, which allowed me to kind of enter into that Yoruba world of, wow, okay, I love this.
I mean, you mentioned your dad there and sort of having discussions with him. I know from my research that your dad was very religious, and you would often kind of butt heads on that when you were growing up. How much of an impact did that have on you?
Yeah, we really, we had healthy arguments, and our father, he was very open. He always said to me, you will find your own way into a kind of spiritual perspective and appreciating that there is something greater than all of us can possibly imagine. And he was right. I found my own way towards it, especially through music. I mean, music is, from time immemorial, is a very powerful medium to try and get beyond ourselves, that kind of transcendental place. And, my father's mother, their family, they were from Oyo, which is towards the north of Yoruba land. So they traveled down from Oyo to a place called Ojota, outside near Lagos. And they were Egungun people, so they were masqueraders, so they were performers. And I remember my dad saying to me that his mum used to say, we're not performers, we are performance, which I thought was really interesting. That was their whole way of being in the world, and therefore understanding, how they were, being in the world through music, through poetry, through historical oration. My grandmother was a fantastic linguist. Apparently she could speak all the different Yoruba dialects because they traveled, you see. So they went to different parts of Yoruba land performing for the noble houses. Yeah. So they would go to Ondo, they would go to Ekiti, they would go to Egba land, Ijebu land. So apparently my grandmother could absolutely recite the orikis of those noble families. So that's how they made their money. That they said, they loved it, and they really. So she was the jewel in the crown in the family when they were doing the masquerade performances and the recitations and the drumming. So it was interesting to hear that later from my dad. He kept that from us, and it's funny. He revealed that to me after coming to see me perform with Jamiroquai at Wembley Arena. And it was really strange because that night was the only night that Jay asked me to open a particular song. So I came out on stage with my bata, which of course is a drum from Yoruba land, and I did a little solo. And after the show, Dad was backstage and he looked really emotional. And my dad was not a man who showed his emotions. So I was quite worried that, Dad, is everything okay? And then he turned around and said to me, it was beautiful, quite tearfully. He said, Sola, I owe you an apology. Watching you on stage perform, I realized that your line is directly from my mum's people. Your hands reminded me of my uncles. You stand and perform like my mum. You sound like my mum when you sing. And I was just, oh my good. I mean, it was quite something. Okay, and also it was quite a release for me, because, like we said earlier, there was tension between us. That, you know, he wanted me to go down the university route, and I decided, well, I think mine is a creative route, and I'm going to try and pursue it, even though you've poo-pooed it, describing musicians as beggars. You know?
Yeah.
So we used to argue. I said, no, you've revealed to me that your mother was a historian, a musical historian, a linguistic historian, a philosophical historian. That's what her family did. So I said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to honor my grandmother, your mother, for the rest of my life. So that's what I'm doing.
Great.
And I've been very fortunate to continue to do so.
So that seed was planted, the idea of going down the more creative route.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know during your school years, you know, you had lots of different sort of interests and passions, one of which was a liking of musicals, which we won't get into that quite now, because I'm sure we'll run out of time. But I know during your teenage years, Sola, you had a few tricky years, like most teenagers do. To be fair,
yeah.
I mean, why were your teenage years? Why were they particularly tricky?
I think, as I alluded to earlier today, when we left West London, we moved to East London because a lot of the Nigerian community were doing so, because the housing was cheaper. My dad regretted it. He always said that I really wished that we'd stayed in West London. But also, once we moved to East London, the family, we imploded. So it was a very difficult time for me. I'm a very family-orientated person. My family is everything to me. So once the relationship between my parents started to really disintegrate, that affected me at school, and in terms of, you know, you move into different spaces because you're looking for that security. And sometimes you find yourself in places, eventually you realize that, yeah, this is not a good place to be. So, you know, I found myself moving with unsavory people. But I kept a good, well, not just me, my parents gave me a good sense of what was right and what was wrong. So I was always able to avoid, you know, terrible, really bad situations by always realizing that, oh my goodness me, if my mum or my dad sees me here, I'm in trouble, so I'm out, you know.
There'll be trouble.
But yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, it was difficult, and also the breakdown in the family happened at that key age between 13 and 16. So the studies suffered, the O levels suffered. I managed to get through school, but you know, my grades dropped. Yeah. Again, and I just started moving with the wrong crowd.
Okay. And you ended up, I mean, I'm not quite sure of the timeline here, but you ended up, as we mentioned earlier, going down the creative route, and you ended up sort of getting into dance culture, eventually becoming a dancer and a DJ. Can you tell us a little bit about that time?
Yeah, well, see, that's really interesting. A dear friend of mine from school, he was a year above me, Henderson Yearwood. What was interesting was we met. We used to live next door to each other when we were living in Forest Gate. And then he went to a different school in East London. And then we reconnected at Brampton Manor, which was the school that we went to. And Henderson was the first to take me to a nightclub.
Okay.
A place called Lacey Ladies in Seven Kings in Ilford. And even before that, we used to buy 12-inch imports from America. So at our school, we had a place called The Shack at in Brampton, where during the afternoon, if you didn't want to do school dinners, everybody would gravitate to that place, and we'd just play records.
Yeah.
And actually, we'd play records, and people would come and dance in the afternoon. So so our afternoons was about dancing and exchanging the 12 American imports that we bought. So that, you know, like the kids now do it with football cards and stuff. We did it with records. Have you got the latest Herb Alpert or the Crown Heights Affair or Funkadelic? And then we'd play it, you know, in the afternoon. So that was a wonderful communal space of, kids who were into dancing and that American music, and it grew into a scene because we then went on as we got older to run our own nightclubs in West London.
Okay.
But we picked that up from guys who were slightly older than us, some of the sixth formers, a guy called Trevor Shakes and Lee Wickens, Lee Wickens went to our school, and they started opening clubs in the West End. And then we kind of followed suit, so we were the next generation down and started doing our own things. But it was really all about finding a place where we could be together and really just dance our heads off,
Okay.
and listen to this incredible music that we, through the dancing, we embodied this Black American sound that is funny because when I do my workshops and teaching stuff with drums or music, I always talk about that, the embodiment of the music, that we embody the sound first, and then through that embodiment we keep exploring what we're trying to do musically. I don't think it's something that they teach in the music schools much, but I think it's an important mode of instilling a way to think about the music, and also, even more importantly, a way to feel the music. So that was amazing, and also referring to moving with the so-called wrong crowd. They were the crowd that introduced me to that music that I loved,
Okay.
and those clubs, and it was
good
different.
times.
Dad didn't like it because it was good times.
Sounds like good times. And I mean, clearly your love, your passion for music has already kind of started to develop. But then a kind of chance meeting with, I guess you would call him maybe like a mentor, Gaspar Lawal. Yes. That happened. And how did that change your life? And how did that meeting happen in the first place?
Wow, today that's a very good question. It's funny because I was with Gaspar a few days ago.
Okay.
Gaspar Lawal was one of the first African percussionists in this country to really enter the pop world of the 60s. So Gaspar played with everybody, from the Rolling Stones to Barbra Streisand, Graham Bond of Air Force. He was a huge mentor to people like Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, basically the giants of British music.
Yeah.
And Gaspar worked a lot with them. And basically, I was introduced to Gaspar because a dear friend of mine that I was at college with, Olalekon Babalola, who is currently the curator for Yoruba Contemporary Arts Trust. He was playing with Gaspar. Now, what you've got to realize is that at that time we were doing our A-levels, and Lekon was a brilliant drummer. He was a brilliant drummer because he grew up in the church, Aladura churches, where he used to play. His father was one of the main pastors. Also, his father was a great musician. So I remember Lekon telling me that, listen, I've got this gig, Shola, with this Nigerian percussionist, and I was like, oh my goodness me, what? How's that going to work, bro? We're in our A levels, we got to be studying and blah blah blah. He said, no man, you got to come and listen to what this guy is doing. So Lekon invited me to what is a performance that Gaspar did at a place called the Commonwealth Institute, which isn't anymore. Used to be in Kensington High Street. And the Commonwealth Institute was a place that my dad used to take us to every weekend, because we used to go and learn about, all the Commonwealth countries and the relationship to the Empire and Britain through the resources of oil and bauxite and iron ore and all of these kind of things. But anyway, Gaspar was performing at the Commonwealth Institute. And I remember we went as a bit of a crew. So I took all of the young Nigerians, Adetokunbo, Gregory Shofadia, we all went, the Nigerian crew. And I heard this music, man, and it was an epiphany moment, man, because it was a percussionist, 4 percussionists, bass, guitar, and saxophone, and that was it. So I'd never seen a musical setup like that where they didn't use a drum kit, the modern drum kit. And listening to the music, it was so powerful, And Lecan, who was playing with Gaspar, blew me away because I'd never seen him play like that. And so that was the inspiration for me to really, okay, I want to do this.
Okay.
I want to do this.
Okay.
And I think I must have been 18, 19, yeah, A-level. So I was 18, 19, just finishing. But again, I was going through a bit of a difficult period. And the next time I heard from Gaspar was 1987, New Year's Eve. And he phoned me.
Okay.
And said, shall I come and spend New Year's Eve with us? And what happens is that he said he saw me with his wife. And he said, Maggie, remember that kid? That was the kid that came to see us at Commonwealth Institute and was dancing his ass off. And he said, excuse my language, and he said, he didn't look well.
Okay.
So Gaspar saw that something was amiss with me. And he brought me in and said to me, look, come to rehearsals and just come and listen first. But I want you to be coming to the rehearsals every Saturday morning. So Gaspar gave me a creative structure that I'd lacked anyway. So as a young teenager trying to find his way, and I was going through a difficult time. I think I'd broken up with my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
So Gaspar brought me back into a structure through music, and then he was the one that encouraged me, okay, learn how to play this percussion, learn how to sing this song in Yoruba, and just come and listen to the band and just sit and be in the sound. So that was just a very powerful healing place for me, and a place where I was able to recalibrate myself through A, the instrument, and then B, the community of other Nigerian or African musicians who were doing something amazing, because the music that Gaspar introduced me to was fantastic. So basically, Gaspar was absolutely, he saved my life, and he just gave me a direction and a discipline that I was lacking.
So it was him really that kind of set you on your way to becoming
Absolutely.
a musician. Like before that, you were mentioning
Absolutely.
that you were kind of in the dance world, you know, going to clubbing and that kind of thing. So maybe you had visions of maybe getting into music somehow, but you wasn't quite sure how or where.
Exactly. Today.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Yeah, exactly right.
And then after meeting Gaspar, you've mentioned on previous interviews, you didn't really start taking music seriously until your mid-20s, and you eventually formed a trio of other percussionists called Ubiquity.
Yes.
So how did that come about?
We used to practice together in a studio that we had off the King's Road, Lots Road behind, King's Road. So the three of us, we always used to get together, and it just occurred to me that, well, we should just try and make something happen. I was also trying to continue the legacy that Gaspar had given me, you know. There weren't many bands in the UK that were led by percussionists, you know. You get the guitar-led bands and the singer-songwriter and the pianos and the singers, but the bands led by percussionists, there's very few, very few. I mean, there are a few now. I mean, even though it's difficult for me to, there are a couple now, but even still, for the size of our community in the UK, I just felt, yeah, we need more of us to come out to the front. So really, that was the beginning of me trying to, let's put it together, let's try and work together and see if we can create a sound and a scene really that's about what we bring to the music as percussionists and drummers, and also from that cultural perspective, which is, you know, when you go to Africa, or particularly West Africa, which I'm more familiar with, you know, the percussion and the melody are the two, you know, holy pillars, man, you know.
Yeah.
In all of the music that I grew up listening to at home with my parents, you know, Haruna Ishola to Yusuf Olatunji, those guys were the guys that you just hear voice and percussion. And then you had Sonny Ade would bring the guitar the guitars in, or Ike Dairo or Ebenezer Obi. They would bring in the Western instruments. But before that, it was Agidigbo, Dundun, the drummers, and then the voice, Haruna. And it was beautiful. I mean, my parents used to play that music every Sunday.
Yeah.
And I used to love hearing it in the house, man.
Yeah.
So also that sound really penetrated me deeply, particularly with the talking drummers, the doom drummers, you know.
Okay.
I could really hear that. Oh my God, these guys are speaking, man. They're speaking with this instrument, you know.
So this band was
yeah.
giving you the opportunity to start performing live, giving you that added
Yeah.
confidence, and this led to you actually getting a gig with the jazz guitarist Ronnie Jordan, who I don't think is with us anymore, is he? So
yeah, no, Ronnie passed. That's right.
yeah, how was that? Because you ended up touring with him for about 9 months, didn't you?
That's right. Wow, Ronnie again, a big moment. That was the first world tour, the first big gig I'd come across, and I got that gig because I was working. This was me. I was trying to get into the music industry. I had my partner at the time was pregnant with my first daughter, Ty, and I was working at a place called the Rock Garden in Covent Garden, which was a famous place where big, bands started, and it was a place where all the bands would come and play, and I just was working behind the bar, but I met a guy, a singer-songwriter who performed there, and he was looking for a percussionist to perform with him. So I said, yeah, I play a bit of percussion, and I'd love to come and do something with you, Benjamin Lesser. And so we did a couple of gigs together, and Benjamin was signed to the management company that signed Ronnie Jordan and a guy called Don E, and also a band called China Black and Gabriel. Remember Gabriel?
Oh.
The singer, Gabriel.
Oh, with the patch.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
And Return of the Mac. Who's the guy that sang?
Tony Morrison or something.
Morrison.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it was through associating with him, and Donnie came and watched us perform, and then Donnie asked me to join his band, and Ronnie Jordan was the musical director in Donnie's band. I think it went like that. I might be wrong. If Donnie hears this, he might correct me, but I think it was something like that. So it was really interesting because Donnie had just signed a huge deal with Island Records. Donnie, a fantastic multi-instrumentalist, cousins with Beverly Knight. So
wow.
You see the kind of connection, UK connection. And Donnie was getting ready to, they were launching him as, a big thing at the same time as Omar. So they were the two UK guys with the big deals with the labels. But Ronnie was about to go out on tour. And I remember him saying to me that, listen, Sola, I'm going to Japan and I'd love you to be in the band. So, and of course, what I loved about Ronnie was that Ronnie was a jazz guy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be with the jazz guys because I wanted to be in a situation where I would grow.
Yeah.
I always respected, there were some serious boys in that band. So I was one of the youngest in the band, and I was the percussionist with the least experience. Everyone else had been playing with some of the biggest bands, Fine Young Cannibals and the Art Blakey, the Jazz Warriors, and I was just, oh my God, I don't know, this is serious. But Ronnie liked what I was doing, so he took me on board, and we went on tour for 9 months, and
wow.
it was foundational for me. It was a huge step up from Gaspar.
Yeah.
A huge step up in the sense of it was completely different music. Ronnie was a brilliant jazz musician. Also, he was from the gospel background in the UK. So that was a different sound to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you've mentioned
I really
that
enjoyed it.
when you were performing night on night, you actually got quite nervous, didn't you? Because as you said, it was quite a bit of a step up for you.
It was a huge step up.
Yeah.
It was, I always compare it think of from the football analogy, it was like going from the Championship into the Premier League. That, oh my God, these guys are serious musicians.
Yeah.
And I was very vulnerable and insecure about my playing because I was a late starter. I didn't really start taking my playing seriously until my early 20s. So, I always felt that, oh my God, I just need to keep quiet and keep my head down and just try not to let the side down.
Okay. Great. And then, I mean, it's interesting. You mentioned you had one of your first daughters just before that happened. So you're juggling this. You know, you're going on tour. You're traveling the world, but you've also got family at home. So that must have been a really challenging time for you as a family.
Yeah.
And then, I guess what most people know you for now, Jamiroquai, the band. This opportunity comes, it almost falls in your lap in 1995, 1996.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that happened, how that sort of connection happened?
Oh wow! Well, that's Derek McKenzie, drummer for Jamiroquai, dear friend. Derek, they were looking for a new percussionist because the percussionist at the time left to work on his own project. And I just got back from a world tour with Ronnie Jordan, with my young family, and my second daughter had arrived, Fola.
Yeah.
So I'd been away for 8 months, so I was really reluctant to do it, you know. And it was my partner at the time, Gillian, said, "Well, at least just hear what he wants to say, Shaw."
Okay.
You know, I just couldn't bear leaving again. So we decided to meet up. He came to our flat there in London Bridge. And it was amazing. We before we listened to any music, we just started talking about London and the club scene in London and the kind of music that we both liked, and we realised that we frequented the same clubs in London, you know. So it was amazing. And then he said, "Can I listen to something?" So this was during the time of cassettes. So I had a cassette of a performance we did, Ronnie Jordan, in New York somewhere. I can't remember the gig that we played. I think it was SOB's, Sound of Brazil in New York. Anyway, we had this amazing recording of it on cassette, and we listened to it, and Derek said to me, "How many percussionists are on stage?" I said, "It's just me." He said, "No way." He said, "It's just me." He said, "It sounds like 4 people." I said, that was the gig. That was how strong that gig was, and that's how much Ronnie pushed me during that gig. He would never allow me to just play one instrument in a section of a song. He'd always ask for more.
Yeah.
So I on that gig I developed a level of independence where I could sing and play and things like that. But what was interesting was Derek said he was given 3 names, and my name was the 3rd name.
Okay.
So I said, "So then why did you choose me?" He said, "I couldn't pronounce your name."
Okay.
And I thought to myself, someone with a name that I can't pronounce and an unusual name like that must be a good percussionist. So his logic was a bit flawed, but thank goodness I'd been on tour, you know, so I was match fit from working with Ronnie.
Yeah.
So, you know, he phoned the Jamiroquai management and said, "Look, I've got the guy, send this guy a ticket and fly him out to Paris." So they flew me out to Paris. But what they forgot to do was send me the music of what they wanted me to perform. So I got to Paris, a television show called Taratata, live television show in Paris.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the music.
Wow.
And we were a bit late because the flight was delayed. So I arrived 5 minutes before they were due to go on stage. And I said to Cassius, the tour manager, "Cass, I don't know what I'm going to play. Where's the music? You didn't send me the music." He said, "Shola, listen, you're just going to have to get on stage and do whatever you can." So I had to go on stage live on French TV and improvise.
Wow.
To the song Space Cowboy. So I did, and this is, you know, I was lucky because I was
match fit,
touring with, so I was ready that, okay, whatever you guys are going to do.
Yeah.
But what I do remember is that I kept my eye on Derek all the time. And throughout the years of playing, people would always say, "You're always looking at Derek when you play."
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
So I'm always watching him, and so there's this very deep connection between us. I can always tell when Derek is not happy or when he's not comfortable. Not only can I feel it in his playing and hear it, I can see it. I see it and I can feel it.
Yeah.
That, okay, D, we're not happy. We're not quite locked in on that groove, you know.
That's always something I've really enjoyed, like watching bands over the years, like particularly in more intimate venues. I've always enjoyed that connection between the band members.
Yeah.
That's really something that you can't buy, you can't really manufacture, can you? It has to be developed over time.
You're right. You can't. And I always say that to people when you listen to Jamiroquai. I mean, I and Derek have been playing together in that band. Derek has been in the band longer than me for 28 years.
Yeah.
That's 28 years of a very intimate relationship of touring the world together. So we're actually all living together, flying together, experiencing highs and lows together, and then being very sensitive to each other's dynamics and changes. So that's why that relationship between I and Derek is so strong. And also, I say to people, Derek he was born in the UK, but his parents are from Jamaica, and Derek started as playing drums in reggae bands in London. You see, so we always used to talk about that we've got that very powerful connection, that kind of African connection of that Caribbean meets West Africa rhythmically. That you can't mess with that. You can't get through that.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
that rhythmic relationship is very high, and we're both very serious about what we do in terms of technically, drumming wise, musically. So we're very, very tight. We don't mess around when I and Derek sit down and play together. It's not a joke. And Jay is not a fool. He could hear it straight away that this is exactly what I want. And Jay's a dancer, so he wants to hear that groove,
Yeah.
And myself being a dancer, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
I know how to, and I always say that, I know how to put that kind of movement inside any instrument I'm playing.
Yeah.
Which is the point I made earlier about embodying that sound and then being able to transfer that sound through my body into the instrument. Doesn't matter how small, triangle, shaker, those are the kind of things I love. Those are the sounds, that's what I love.
And of course, when you're referring to Jay, you're referring to Jay, the singer of the band.
Jason Kay, yes, the lead singer, yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting to me. You mentioned that fantastic story about flying out to Paris and not even being sent the music and just kind of turning up and just kind of improvising on the spot. But up until that point, or maybe up until, having that meeting with Derek, you weren't familiar with Jamiroquai's music up until then, were you? Even though they'd come out with their first album. Because I remember buying their first album. I bought their first album, and I bought it on tape, and I bought it in Hoxton Market in East London.
Okay.
But that was my first ever album that I bought. But yeah, you weren't necessarily familiar with their music up until that point.
No, it's interesting because I tell you today, when we were on tour in Japan with Ronnie, I remember us going to a club one night, and I remember someone playing their music. And I'll tell you what, it was really interesting. When I heard it, I could hear myself in the music. It was very strange. And then I remember saying to the guy, "Who's this?" I said, "It's a band called Jamiroquai." Jamiroquai? And I said, "Where are they from?" America. I said, "Are they Americans?" He said, "No, they're British." I went, "Wow, okay." So then it was weird, at the end of the 8 months to get the call of, "Listen, come and..." So, there's a certain, what do they call it? Is it serendipity or kind of synchronicity?
Yeah.
Things just change, and then before I knew it, it's oh my God, I'm playing with these guys. All right.
And what a whirlwind it was. I mean, being part of this band. Oof. I mean, you joined in 1996 already. By 1998, you'd won a Grammy. I think you won. I'm not quite sure what award you won, but it was for Virtual Insanity, wasn't it?
That's right. It was for the Virtual Insanity video, of MTV Award.
MTV Awards, like yeah. So you are a bona fide rock star at this stage. You're part of this kind of rock band, if you like. I know you kind of started off in the acid jazz scene, but to all intents and purposes, for us in the UK, you are this band that's kind of riding the charts and going on these big international tours. I mean, how was it being part of this band back in the 90s? Like, you hear all these stories about rock stars and all of the trappings, the groupies, the drugs, the hotels. Is that all a cliche, or is some of that actually true?
No, it's you just have to imagine it as the most extreme kind of hedonism that everything all your wildest dreams is just presented to you. I think Annie Lennox says it in her song with the Eurythmics, "Sweet dreams are made of this," but it's also it can be quite nightmarish as well if you're not careful.
Yeah.
It was Jamiroquai transformed my life. I mean, I say to people, you know, there are two very important people came into my life: Gillian Evans, the mother of my daughters, and Jason Kay. They transformed my life in this country, like irrevocably. I mean, I mean, with Ronnie, we toured on a certain level. That was a kind of jazz type level, but Jamiroquai just took it to a whole nother level. Whole nother level in terms of numbers, in terms of success, in terms of album sales, in terms of promotion, and the kind of people that you start to interact with, you know, negative and positive. And it was very challenging. It was very, very challenging. I won't deny it to you. And there was a point around 1998, 99. 1997 was the big album, Traveling Without Moving, 10.6 million sales worldwide.
Crazy.
And that was it. Yeah. We were a bona fide international mega band. And everything, you know, we could do no wrong. But I specifically remember a time in New York when I thought, I need to find a way to ground myself as if I'm going to continue in this project. And that's when I started doing yoga. That's when I started making sure that anytime we went to America or we went to France, I'd go and have lessons with people. So if I was in France, I'd go and, you know, have lessons with piano teachers, or if I was in America, I'd go and have drum lessons with Gary Chester, or I'd go to Spanish Harlem and learn to improve my bata playing with the great late Milton Cardona, Puerto Rican percussionist. So every time I went to America, I'd make sure I'd find something to do. And that really helped me. What that did was that brought me back to the whole reason I was out on tour with Jamiroquai, is because I wanted to be a great musician. And I remember we met Herbie Hancock in Norway at the Nobel Peace Prize Awards. And he said something so beautiful. He said, Sola, just make sure each day you're a better musician than you were yesterday.
Wow.
You know, and that was a wonderful, beautiful gift, you know. And I'm going to drop another name now, Jack Nicholson at Las Vegas, MGM, supporting the Rolling Stones. He said to me in the dressing room, he said, Sola, make sure whatever you do, keep your mind on the craft.
Okay. I'm thinking of the movie star. Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson.
Okay, him.
Keep your mind on the craft, he said to me. So what he was telling us was, all of this, blah, 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 is not it.
Yeah. It must be so difficult.
You're there for.
It must be so difficult just keeping yourself centered. And the fact that you found something like yoga, I know that's something your wife introduced to you at the time, but yeah, I mean, that's brilliant.
Yeah, it saved me. It saved me in terms of, it gave me the grounding that I needed, and it kept me away from the rock star lifestyle.
Yeah, and well, it's really interesting you mentioned as well. Like, you know, you talked about being with your fellow band members for such a long time. 30 years or give or take 30 years. I mean, many of us outside of the world of the arts, you know, none of us really get a chance to work with somebody or a group of people for 30 years.
True.
I mean, how have they changed, do you think, over that time? And how have you changed in respective to your band colleagues?
It's a good point. I think we've all realized what's important. We've all come to that place in our own time in different ways, and we've all come to really appreciate, deeply, the life that we've been able to lead as creatives. It's so special. It's so privileged. You know, people talk about it. You listen to people in the Oscars and actors and creative people, to be able to earn a living and look after our families and support our children through what we do is
It's a blessing.
an incredible gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an incredible blessing, man. And therefore, for me, the act of creativity is to be. I mean, I'm not religious, but I will use that word. There's almost something sacred about it. The act of finding, of being in your creative space, and recreating yourself constantly, is for me. It's bowing my head and humbling myself to the Creator, because our presence in this moment in the world is not something that we're in charge of. We're not in control of it. And that creative energy is what, for me today, I'm constantly honoring each day, every morning when I wake up. I do my yoga, and I mean, we're sitting here next to my piano. My bata is here on the right, downstairs are my congas, and in my other room is my drum kit. So there's not a room in this house where you don't find an instrument.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And also, that creative space enables me to constantly be present to my emotional state all the time.
Yeah.
And so to be able to earn a living from that, more than earn a living, but actually be successful in terms of how people define success. My definition of success is different. My definition of success is in line with Herbie Hancock's. Is if this week I'm a better musician than I was last week, then that's a successful week for me.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, you talk about success, and you've had success in other genres of the arts. You kind of dipped your toe into theatre in the 2010s, doing a number of different productions at the National Theatre and also at the RSC. And the Young Vic as well. I mean, the actual one with the RSC, the Royal Shakespeare Company, for people that don't know, was a production of Hamlet. And you weren't just kind of doing the music for the theatre production, but you were actually the composer. So that must have taken you into a whole nother realm of creativity. I mean, how challenging was that for you?
Yeah, exactly, Tunde. That was, I'll tell you now, I lost 3 of my teeth in the top of my because my dentist said to me, he said, Sola, what's happening? Something's happening. He said, you're grinding. I said, I've got the gig at the Royal Shakespeare Company and I'm composing the music and I am terrified.
Okay. So you're grinding your teeth when you're sleeping?
Because I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And I owe that gift to Matthew Scott, who was the head of music at the National Theatre. And I just finished playing the percussion for a production there called Everyman, featuring Chiwetel Ejiofor, great actor,
great.
Directed by Rufus Norris, amazing director, artistic director of the National Theatre, who's now left. And Matthew said to me at the end, the last evening of the performance, he said, Sola, what are you doing in 2016? What's happening with Jamiroquai? I said, not much. We're in the studio recording another album, blah, 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 but that will go on for however long. He said, great, I've got a gig for you. I said, great, playing percussion. He said, no. He said, I've put you forward as composer. And I stood up to walk away. I said, Matthew, you're out of your mind. He said, I knew you'd do that, Sola. So I've arranged the interview. It's 2:00 next Thursday in the Russell Square in Holborn. And the director's Simon Godwin, and I'm expecting you to go.
Okay.
So Matthew had put me in it, and he was brilliant. He told me what to say. He said, whatever you do, don't use the language I don't know. If he says anything to you that you're not sure of, just say, can I get back to you on that?
Okay.
And it was a brilliant interview. Simon was amazing, but he was also very clever. At the end of the interview, he said, Sola, I absolutely think that you're the person for the job, but can I ask you something? He said, what do you need to be comfortable in the role? Now, Matthew hadn't prepared me for that question. So I said, I had to think on my feet. I said, Simon, can you give me somebody who will help score during the rehearsals when I'm playing? Because we were improvising the music during the rehearsals. Yeah. So he said, no problem. So he gave me more than somebody that could score. He gave me a composer, a guy called John Nichols, brilliant composer, done a lot of work for the BBC and for theatre. And so John used to write down the parts that I played during certain scenes, Ophelia, To Be or Not to Be, or the play within a play. And then he'd say, this is what you played here, this is what you played, and he'd write it down, and then I'd take that home, and then I'd flesh it out.
Yeah.
So it was transformational for me working at the Royal Shakespeare Company today, because and there were some beautiful people there that were really supportive, and they also realized that I was inexperienced. So there were times during the rehearsals where they would call out on the monitors that, all creatives for a meeting, and I would just want to stay with the musicians to keep working on the music.
Okay.
And then Maggie was her name. I've forgotten her surname. Maggie, she was the stage manager. She'd come and knock on the studio door and say, Sola, you got to go for the meeting. I said, which meeting? He said, you're part of the creative team. You got to go, and anytime they call, you've got to be there.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. I said, well, why do they need me? Because I was all about the music.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting in the room with the other creatives, the stage designer, the director, the lighting designer, the heads of Royal Shakespeare Company, and just being in the room to listen how they spoke about the production was priceless experience for me.
Amazing. In
terms of, this is the level of detail you need to actually have the stamina to stay with. And this is how you create good top draw productions. Yeah. They push and push and push and push. So that I took that with me back into the band and back into other works that I do, that never settle. If you think you can come again,
yeah,
until it comes to the point where okay, I can't think of any other way, and it feels right and everybody else in the room agrees, then we move forward. If 3 other people in the room are not sure about what you've done, then let's hold and see if we can improve it.
Yeah, you mentioned other works there. I mean, I know we're running out of time, but this kind of led to other genres in the arts as well. I mean, you've been working on a big CBS TV sitcom in the States called Bob Hart's Abishola, and that ran for 5 years. And for people in the UK, the executive producer of this show is a comedian called Gina Yashere, who you guys in the UK might have heard of. I know she's left the UK and moved to the States about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. But you've been working on that. You've also come up and produced and created your own albums. So in 2007, you came up with your debut album, Roots to Roots. And then, just last year, you came up with your with another album, How Should I? So this is all, fantastic creativity, fantastic output. We didn't quite have time to actually discuss some of the absolute greats that you've worked with in the music industry. People like David Bowie, Stevie Wonder, Damon Albarn from Blur and Gorillaz, the absolute legend Tony Allen. My gosh. And more recently, people like Idris Elba, who I know is more of a movie star than music. But I was just wondering, out of all of those names, who of those guys has surprised you the most, would you say?
I'd have to say, wow, it's tricky. I don't want to leave everybody out. All of them. I was really impressed with Damon Albarn, his work ethic, and his ability to shapeshift musically.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Is quite incredible.
Yeah.
Also, Idris is amazing. People know Idris as an actor, but he's a very good songwriter. Very good songwriter. And he's very good in the studio. And then Stevie. What can we say about Stevie? What can we say about him? Stevie. And then, of course, the late Mr. David Bowie. I didn't actually get to meet David Bowie because he was away, but we were kind of, he would give us references in terms of, I love what you're doing here, Sola, try this, try that. There's an album called Heathen. But I've been very fortunate, Tunde, as we mentioned earlier, very, very fortunate to take take something from every experience that I've had up to date.
And what I find particularly charming about your story is that you've almost passed the baton on to other people in your family. So, we spoke before we started recording that your brother is called Jimmy Akingbola, and he's a famous actor. So people at home, he's maybe most well known for appearing in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the TV production, not the one with Will Smith, but the most recent TV production. And then one of your daughters, Fola, she's now an actress, and she's appeared on things like Night Agent on Netflix, and she's actually produced her own documentary about black hair that I've watched as well. Yes. So it's fantastic the way you've kind of led your life as a musician. It's almost now being passed to other people in your family. That must be tremendously satisfying for you, I guess, and makes you must be really proud.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Today, I mean, again, that takes us right back to the conversation we had at the beginning of, the conversation I had with my dad, that I always felt that the need to honor my father's mother, our grandmother, that side of the family, as far as we know, is where that creative legacy, that creative wealth comes from. So it's an honor and to be able to really be in that space and see it with my siblings and my daughters. And my nephew that's coming through now as well.
Oh, you've got a nephew, okay.
A musician.
Oh, okay.
And a writer, my late brother's son. So it's lovely to see it. I mean, when I and Jimmy were in Nigeria for the Mission Motherland as well, we went to the village where our grandmother grew up, where she and my grandfather raised my parents and stuff. And it was interesting also seeing some of the other distant cousins and seeing, oh my God, okay, this one is got the musical talent, or this one loves poetry, and this one is a lawyer. It's there. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
And I love that. I always say that is the wealth. It's great to make money. That has its own wealth and it has its own power. It gives you a certain kind of freedom. But there's a deeper wealth. There's a deeper wealth which comes from the culture, which comes from, the families and every family all over the world, but particularly amongst the Yorubas. Every family has its skill set, it has its thing. That's what our oriki is, The oriki is the praise names of the ancestors in the family that were able to push through and push the family into another level of existence, on a whole nother level, whether it be with drumming, whether it be with poetry or movement or intellect or art, it doesn't matter. And that is what we hold very special as a people, the Yorubas.
Yeah.
We're very particular about that, that the will and ability to keep recalibrating and exceeding those that have come before us. That's what they want. That's what they want you to do. Be better than me. Don't bring me something that is less than what I was doing. I didn't bring you to England to become some useless boy.
Yeah.
Try and do something that will make me say, okay, that's my boy.
Yeah. I'm laughing because it's something I'm sure my dad and my mum have told me many, many times growing up. So that's the only reason I'm laughing. So
you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Sola, I mean, you've obviously had tremendous success in your career, and we've talked about you shape-shifting, going into slight sub-genres within the arts community, and still, crushing it in those as well. What do you put your success down to? Is it luck? Is it talent? Or is it hard work? If you had to pinpoint and isolate one of those three things, what's been the biggest contributor towards your success? Luck, hard work, or talent?
I think it's a combination of all of them. It's a combination of all of them. But if I had to be forced to pin it down, then I would say the ability to keep going. I've been using that language. Recalibrate, redefining yourself, and don't be afraid to enter spaces where you feel your discomfort. It's in those spaces that you're going to find growth. You see? So that's it, yeah. Keep going, keep a sense of, we all have our discipline. Everybody has it. Once you find the thing that you love doing, there's an approach, a kind of meditative discipline-like approach that's not neurotic. Don't get neurotic about it. It's just almost like breathing, that, I got to do this every day. And out of that, things create. The creativity comes. And I think focusing on that is key. And then that creates its own things, that sometimes you got to be in a position to receive the luck. You got to be ready to receive the luck. I think a lot of us find ourselves in positions of opportunity, but we haven't done the work to make the opportunity, to realize that it's an opportunity, so that we miss it.
Yeah.
So I would say you need all three.
Okay. All right, well, you've given up so much of your time. We do appreciate it. Where can people hear you live, Sola? Like either your own work or Jamiroquai's work. When are you next performing?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you asked me that, Tunde. I'm actually in the process of trying to put together our first live show for 2026. So I'm just having a look at the kind of venues that I want to see we can play at. I'm interested in playing in not just any old venue, venues with real cultural and historical significance. So, just watch this space. We're going to be performing live definitely before the end of summer.
Okay.
So, and check out the album on Bandcamp, How Should I, which is out there. So, I'm looking forward to us doing it live. We love it.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to that as well. Sola, it's been a great pleasure having you on the podcast.
The pleasure's been mine, Tunde. Thank you so much.
So there we have it, a bona fide rock star on the podcast. So great to have Sola on. Thank you to him. Such a soulful person. I mean, what really stood out for me was how deeply connected he is to his Yoruba roots, and how he's managed to actually bring that heritage into modern music on a global stage. Some great words of wisdom too, particularly about, there was that one about not being afraid to enter spaces of discomfort. Now, did you catch that his brother is Jimmy Akingbola, who has appeared in the comedy In the Long Run and played Jeffrey in Bel Air, which is the revamp of Fresh Prince of Bel Air. We'll have to get Jimmy on one time. He's a famous actor in his own right. Now, the two of them actually appeared in a really interesting documentary about people returning to their homelands. It was on BET last year, and it's called Mission Motherland. So if you get a chance, do check that out. And if you're into music, percussion, jazz, funk, or African culture, definitely check out Sola's work. I'll include links to his music and his website in the show notes. As usual, send us your emails. Let's hear from you. What did you make of that show? What did you make of the fact that we're now starting to record more and more of the shows on the video? Send your emails to howicrushed@gmail.com. Okay, that's it for this week. Catch you on the next show.